Off, we are joined by Tyler Reddick, driver of the number 45 Toyota for 2311 Racing. Tyler, you probably had a more eventful off week with something that happened than most of us in this room. First off, congratulations, and how did that go?
Yeah, finally built Elden Ring. That was a pretty big deal. And also, yeah, we got married too. That was also really, that came first. That was priority number one. Then when I got home and had a couple days of downtime, I took care of that other part, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thankfully, just with the way our break worked out this season, was able to have our wedding and all the pre and post part of it. I don't know, it just kind of flew by. Sarah was over here, a part of it too. She understands how crazy it was, but yeah, it was just a really fun time. Shout out Sarah.
All right, we'll open it up.
She's leaving now.
We'll open it up for questions. If you have a question, raise your hand. We'll get a mic to you. We'll start with Lee and then go to Nate.
Hey, Spencer, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio and CatchFence.com. With the fouls out of the way, do you feel like you can just put your full attention on the task at hand, winning the championship?
Well, if Alexa was here, she'd tell you that I pretty much already was doing that. I wasn't really a great help in the process, but I think there was not many times, but there was a few times I was able to help her on a this or that decision. But largely, I mean, she took care of the whole thing. Her and the rest of the girls did a really good job on it. That's the tough thing with doing it in the middle of the year, is trying to focus on racing and then, trying to be ready for a very important day in your life as well. So, it's I wouldn't say I'm glad it's over. I wish that the night would have never ended. It was a great night. It just, you always hear it, but it does truly fly by.
And any great bow stories from the event?
Well, I mean, he did, honestly, nothing really, he didn't like mess anything up. He did a really good job. It's just, it was a really cool moment. I walk up, he walks up, waits for Alexa, kisses exchanged. He was really excited for us to get married. And as soon as we were finally married, he literally a day and a half later was like, "Dad, I want brothers and sisters. Like, I want brothers and sisters now." I'm like, "Oh, okay, wow." He jumped from one thing to the next. He wanted us to get married, and now he wants us to have some more kids.
Nate.
Nate Ryan, NBC Sports. Tyler, I wanted to look at Watkins Glen. I know you tested there, I think in June, the new configuration. So I'm wondering, like, what did you guys learn at that test? Do you feel like that's going to address the problems that they had in the last race here? And did you notice like the head problems that they had?
Well, I mean, it's just, I appreciate them putting our safety first. It's somewhat of a nature of what that track is like. And, with the previous generation car, you could really only afford to be that aggressive maybe a third of the race. I feel like, the bus stop there has always been really hard on equipment, and we've figured out over time with the next gen car that it's really durable. You can just bounce it off walls, bounce it off curbs. The car is very robust. So yeah, I'm glad they took that effort to help our head and our brain. Certainly it's crazy how much faster it is. That part is pretty wild. But I think the nature of the bus stop remains intact. I think what has me, equally as excited for the race as well is just the tires that Goodyear brought to the test. We worked on. I remain really excited to see what that race is like when we go back. I think we have the opportunity to have more fall off than we've had in years since, I think, before they repaved it 2 times ago when it had a lot of fall off. So excited for that, and hopefully it works out.
Then quick follow-up, obviously they made the changes because of the mouthpiece sensor data. So do you wear that weekly? You do, okay.
I try to.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. How do you feel about that they're able to make changes based off that kind of technology? It must be helpful for you.
It is a big help because sometimes I believe with in practice, they've got the thing basically running the whole time, so it's tracking everything. In the races, it tracks information too, with like what we had in the, what I don't even know if it's called that anymore, but the sensor data that they collect from a crash only triggers if it senses a crash, right? So there's a lot of other moments that may and can occur at some of these racetracks. So it's been great that they're collecting this data. The more data they have, the more they can kind of identify trends. And one of the trends they picked up on across, all the drivers wearing the sensor is that we're taking big shots, 2 or 3, in a matter of seconds through the bus stop. And when you multiply that with the length of the race, it can be pretty high stress on the body.
Tyler, we'll go over to your left against the wall there and then come back to John.
Chris Powell, Couch Coach Live. Tyler, you're third in points. What was your thoughts on the Olympic break as far as the momentum help you kind of, in a sense, kind of give you somewhat of a break, but kind of get you back focused for Richmond?
I've honestly been completely unplugged from racing the last couple of weeks. I've got a lot of faith in the team at 2311. I was able to pretty much not think about racing for 2 weeks, and for us, I wasn't really necessarily worried about it. I knew we were coming back to a track where when things are right and we're not having issues with the car, we run top 5. So I'm just really thankful for that kind of team that allows me to kind of step away from it and not feel like we're going to be behind when we get back to the racetrack.
John
Newby, alt driver. So you're going to have Juan Pablo Montoya as a teammate at Watkins Glen. I was curious, what is that experience going to be like having him as a teammate, and have you reached out to him yet? Or are you going to reach out to him, just kind of bounce ideas back and forth?
Yeah, I got to run into him actually. He was on his way out of airspeed when I saw him, and yeah, I never had the opportunity to meet him before, but he's just an incredible personality, and the way that he thinks about things is kind of from a different generation of driver, and so it's been really cool to share just a couple of things with him. But I'm looking forward to that experience when we get to the Glen, hearing his input from their test, the things he's picking up on in the car already. He's just going to offer a unique vantage point, a very experienced vantage point on where our cars are at on road courses. And I'm really looking forward to having an experience like that, being able to be a teammate with a driver as accomplished as him.
Perfect. And then one quick follow-up. Do you have a final hour count for Elden Ring?
I think we're approaching 160 hours. It's a grind.
We'll stay right here in the middle.
Tim Moore Motorsports today. Tyler, this track's been difficult for you throughout your career, but you got your first top 10 here, at least back in the spring. What is it about this place that's just made things so difficult for you to get the results you wanted at this track?
Yeah, I think for me, when I ran here in the Xfinity Series, I couldn't have been more lost. And over the years, I've been fortunate to be surrounded by good people. When I was at RCR, I really feel like Randall Burnett and those guys, my engineers, even my teammate, Austin, provided good insight and gave me an idea of, where to start. And not necessarily the finishes show it, but I think our performance, average running position, just outright speed got better and better. And it took another huge jump when I came to 2311. Denny's been a huge help. Bubba has a good understanding for this place, and Billy Scott. And my whole team just does a really good job of painting the picture for me of what I need to do with my race car and what's important to go fast, what's important to take care of the tires. So I just have great people around me that's really allowed that learning curve to be quick. The craziest part is I feel like the worst I've been in a couple years was the spring here, but it was my first top 10. So we've definitely got the speed, but we've let the finishes get away from us here at Richmond. So hopefully we can continue that positive trend like we've had the last couple of months and find a way to get good finishes. But I mean, last fall when we were here this time a year ago, we were really, really fast, Bubba and myself both. So looking forward to having that speed again.
And moving forward, you have 2 playoff cutoff races that will be at short tracks. How important is it going to be for you guys to perfect that short track package heading towards the playoffs?
Yeah, I think we were really, really happy with what we had at Iowa, and I think we were a little too reactive to the tire issues that we saw, and we just didn't have the right mindset for the Iowa race. But I was really excited when this year got going at Phoenix. Myself, ultimately Christopher Bell won the race, but we were fast. We were up front. All the Toyotas were. So I feel like the amount of speed that we've been able to take to these short tracks and still be lacking little things like the balance not being right, having some other issues in the car, and still getting the finishes that we are and having the speed that we do, makes me remain hopeful for when we do get it right, that we'll be right where we belong.
Tyler, we'll stick to your left against the wall over there.
Since Talladega, from Steven Sykes and Live and Global Media. Since Talladega, things been pushing forward, trending upward. As you now into the playoffs, what are some of the things you want to guard against and protect versus what you went into last year from this year heading into the playoffs?
Well, I think one thing that worked against us at times were just making big mistakes. We didn't have a whole lot of playoff points going into it last year, compared to the guys we were competing against for the championship for. So I think it's just minimizing the bad days, and I think we've done a really good job of that over this stretch. If I could go down the list, I feel like Pocono, we had a caution every time a caution came out is when we didn't need it. Same thing happened at Indy. We had the loose wheel and still came back to second. So I think we've done a really good job. Even here at Richmond, actually earlier in the year, we were not that great and fought back for a top 10. So we've just done a really good job of fighting through these things and getting the finishes, and I think that will be really important in the playoffs. One thing that's been on our side is the speed. It's been allowing us to close the points gap. So we got a lot of positives going for us right now.
We'll wrap up with Reed.
Reed Spencer with the NASCAR Wire. In looking through your stats, given the speed that you've had on downforce tracks, I was surprised to see that you've never had a top 10 at Michigan yet. Is that a track that's on your hit list? And what have you been doing to try to get that first one?
Well, there's a few tracks I'm looking for redemption we go back to, and that's one. Last year for us, we hit pit road for the final time, and we lost a wheel, and so that was a tough one. I feel like we pretty much won the race. Last stop was done. There wasn't any more cautions, so that was a brutal one to let slip away. I think the whole team's learned from it. They're tough lessons, but nonetheless, if you learn from it, there's still a positive to be taken away from it. So, yeah, I think all of us are going to be on this team are very hungry to get back to Michigan. We definitely ran a really good race there last year, and did what we needed to do to get to the front and fight for the lead. So we're hoping for the same thing. We go back. This new Camry's been pretty much everywhere we've gone this year, been better, and so that just makes me that much more excited for it.
Awesome. Thank you, Tyler. Best of luck this weekend.
Thank you, everybody.